As you know, this is the normal night for the Planning Commission meeting, but we didn't have any pressing business for the Planning Commission tonight, so we thought it'd be a very good time to have the kickoff for our area, for a Senseny Eastern Frederick Urban Area Plan. I'm George Kriz. I'm on the Planning Commission from Gainesboro District, but I do chair the Comprehensive Programs and Plan Subcommittee. I think that's the right name, isn't it, Mike?
This year, yeah.
And I'd like to welcome everybody here, and I want to thank all of you who made a commitment to work for the next couple months on developing our urban area plan for the Senseny Eastern Frederick area. As you know, the state of Virginia has to have a comprehensive plan, and we just developed a new comprehensive plan, and now we want to carry the comprehensive plan is essentially a policy document. Now with the urban area plan, this is to put the nuts and bolts into a particular area as you, the residents and owners of businesses in the areas, have. And this is, we're using the same format that we used for the development of the comprehensive plan. It worked extremely well, and with that, I will stop and let Mike, unless, June, is there anything that you need to say? So I'll turn it over to Mike so he can do a little bit more of the prelims, and then we'll break up into the work groups.
All right. Thank you, George, and good evening again, everybody. Thank you all for being here, first and foremost. But again, thank you very much for actually volunteering your time. Over the past 3 or 4 weeks, as we went into the introduction and input meetings, if you will, as we started and kicked off this study effort, we were a little unsure as to the response that we would get. Again, we had a pretty good format that we felt worked well for the comprehensive plan, and we wanted to add to that for this small area plan. And again, the response that we got, as evidenced here tonight from you guys, is very impressive and much appreciated. And especially as we were very clear at the time commitment, I believe, during those public input meetings, that October and November would be a good effort for you guys as a part of the working group. So again, we really appreciate that commitment of time. We won't be here too long tonight, but what I'm going to do is just go through a few things here to help us get started, get these working groups together and get you guys rolling, because we're going to give you a date, if you will, of November the 30th, which will be the deadline, if you will, for each of the working groups to turn the product in. What hopefully you picked up when you came on in was a little package of information, and I'll go through some of that on the screen here this evening. Yours is a little bit more detailed, a few more contact information numbers. But all of this information will be up on our website, and if we need anything directly sent to you, we're more than happy to do that, because you'll recognize here shortly that we are, of course, resources for you to help you get through this working group process. So not only do we have the vast majority of working group members here, we have several planning commissioners who are here as resources too, and of course planning staff members that can help you answer any questions that may come up here this evening, and also throughout the process. So tonight we'll go through very briefly the schedule for the whole project, if you will, and then we can see how the working group's effort works into that. We'll go through the template, or the kind of the outline that we'll be using for the work that you'll be doing, and then we'll go through the resources that are available before we finally break into tonight's real task. And that task is, of course, to have you as working groups get to know each other, to introduce yourselves to each other, and to share contact information and start the process rolling. So after I've gone through a few things, and before we get into tonight's task of you guys meeting and greeting each other, you'll actually do so at the back. So you'll see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 tables set up, just the same as the working group chapters. Over here we have urban areas and residential development. Where Phil is sitting, that is going to be the business development table. Where Gary Oates is sitting over here, we have the transportation table, which actually I think we might need a few more chairs around because that's a pretty good group. And then on the far end, we have the natural resources, historic resources, and public facility working group area. So that'll be the lion's share of what you're going to get into tonight, and that's really to introduce yourselves to each other and start the discussion and start the connections and contacts actually working. So as I mentioned, October, November now, we're going to turn it over to you to throw your ideas out there, to understand where we have come from, where we are, if you will, trying to go to. George had mentioned that the 2030 Comprehensive Plan was recently approved. In that plan, there are some policies, some future focus, some general guidelines, if you will, for each of these areas. And I know you all, many of you got the letter or the email about tonight's meeting, so hopefully you found those chapters online and you had the chance to have a quick glance at those areas, which will give some guidance. So October and November, with a completion date, if you will, just after Thanksgiving of November 30th, to basically complete your work and hand it on over. One thing that we will request as we try and manage this over the next couple of months is we really want to communicate not only with each other in the groups, but also to many other folks who may be following along. We had a lot of interest from people who may not live or work within the study area, but wanted to follow along. So we want to try and make sure we can summarize what is happening. If there's any information that the working groups are coming up with that you want to put out there for feedback, we'll try and do that again. So as many people as possible can be involved, aware, and have input into this. So to that end, the one thing we will look on when it comes to communication is, if at all possible, when you guys are meeting, if you can just send us a quick email with time, date, location, and that would be to myself and Chris Moan. And Chris, let me just briefly stop right there. You guys are the working groups, and there's an overriding facilitating group that is going to be receiving your work at the end of November. Chris Moan is the chairman of that group and he wanted to be here this evening, but I think some bug has him, some allergy or something of that nature. So I'm sure you'll get to meet Chris, who's a Planning Commission member and a citizen of Frederick County, as this process goes along. But again, if you can communicate with Chris or myself when you guys meet, if you have information to share, if anything you want feedback on, we'd just ask that you continue to recognize that as we go through the process. Your participation really does end as a working group at the end of November. But as we'll see here from the schedule, there's still many, many steps to go beyond your November turnover. So we've obviously got to present this to the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors, and we look to do that in a Planning Commission retreat. Yeah, we look to do that at the Planning Commission retreat, which is in January or February of next year. And if we get the go-ahead from the Board of Supervisors at that time to move forward with the product that we have in place, then there'll be additional public input, information meetings, and then the required public hearings at the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors before it's ultimately approved. So we do ask that, of course, you guys are working pretty hard here in October, November. You are in essence done, but if you like what has been put together, please feel free to champion it and help support it after the fact. So we'd certainly appreciate that. Now, of course, we are aware that the plan will consist of the 4 parts: urban areas and residential development, the business development, transportation, and then, of course, the natural, historic, and public facilities chapters. So while there are 4 separate parts, there is going to be a little bit of overlap of each. So it's important to be aware, I think, of the overarching urban areas policy as we talk about that, what the county's, in essence, vision is for the urban areas of the county. And just also be open, if you will, that you may be duplicating the work of another group. There may be some collaboration opportunities there. So, don't feel that you have to collaborate with every group. Don't feel as though you have to listen to every group, but to the greatest extent that we can, recognize that whatever we may do has a relationship to the other groups. I think that would help us as we go through this. I think in the package, as we go past the schedule, We've talked about the initial working groups, we've talked about future participation, and now we're just at the section there where we talk about the example of the template. We've talked about the 4 groups, but each of these sections we would look to address and focus our efforts in these directions. The first one being the future focus. What do you see? What do you believe should happen within your particular working group for the future? Now, the comprehensive plan gives us some guidance. What do you believe we should be seeing? For instance, areas for future industrial commercial development to balance the economic development side of things of the county. Where should our urban centers, neighborhood villages be located? How should our transportation connections be put in place to create that nexus between all of these things, to create that dynamic happening? So the future focus is one component that you really need to be, is the first, if you will, part of the working group's effort. Then its relationship to the 2030 comprehensive plan, what you're talking about, what you think the future should be in a certain location, how does that relate back to the comprehensive plan? I think it's important that everything that we do does so to a certain extent. And then what specific implementation steps do you see? Do you think a bike path should be in a certain place, a trail connection, a public facility should be located in a certain spot? So using those 3 elements, if you will, the parts of the template, that can guide us, and you'll see that on the next page, in no particular order, and certainly hasn't been filled in yet, but we're not asking you to really create a novel. That will come, the facilitator group, I think, will put all that together because we want it to speak with one voice, just like we did with the comprehensive plan. But hopefully it's relatively easy for you in that I think this is the best place to see it. But simply, we can put it down in bullet form. If you guys have a good thought or a good implementation step or something you want to see as a future focus, let's group it and just put it in some sort of bullet form to make it easier for everybody. This template, if you will be online, so you certainly can upload it and use that at your will, whether you want to do it digitally through the internet, emailing it to each other, or if you want to print it out and fax it in, we'll certainly be able to use anything that you provide to us. But again, the future focus, how it relates to the comprehensive plan, and some specific implementation steps would be great. And I think if we get that from each of the working groups, at the end of November, we'll be where we need to be. Now, the 4th component of that is actually a map product. And hopefully you guys are somewhat visual and you can actually picture some of these things on a map. Of course, the land use plan and then ultimately the zoning ordinance are very important components of the county's comprehensive plan. So ultimately we'll end up with a map for each of the groups, a map which talks about land use. That map includes residential development and business development. We have another map which talks about transportation, including perhaps trails, road sections, new road locations, expansions. And we'll have a final map which deals with natural resources, historic resources, and public facilities. So that's kind of the format that we have put together in the recent plans that we've done, and we think it works quite well. So the last thing you'll have is a map product, and it can be with magic marker, crayons. The kids can do it if you really think they're actually better in putting it down on paper. And of course, we can translate that into our GIS system, into our mapping to ultimately present, again, a map in each direction: land use, transportation, and the natural facilities. Some of you may have observed the Google fly-throughs that were done for the public input meetings, and that, I think, gave perhaps a different perspective on some of the areas out there. I know when I was talking initially with the students at Millbrook who will be doing a similar thing, I don't think they use paper anymore at the high school, which is a great thing to see. And they're already anticipating just Googling it and merging it with the Google documents that are out there. So great. Everybody's at a different level, but ultimately, again, what we're looking from the working group is the bulletized lists and some sort of map product. Now, as we break here this evening, each of the tables we have 11 by 17s for everybody to take home and get orientated and sketch on and copy. The first one is just a general map of the study area with a little bit of topography in there. It recognizes some of the approved projects that may be out there, some of the bigger developments. It recognizes the airport support area, schools, some parks, the stream valleys, things of that nature. So this gives us a little bit of a base map to orientate yourself. In addition to that, which everybody will be able to take home with them, at the business development and residential development tables, you have a small land use map with the current land use. That's how it is in the comprehensive plan today. Certainly not how it may be at the end of your work. So we encourage you to look at it, understand it, change it, adapt it, and certainly bring it forward to where it needs to be today. The transportation folks will have one that just has transportation on it too. And finally, the community facilities folks, again, they'll have their own, which has all of the historic resources, natural resources, and public facilities located on it. So that's the final component, the map product. What resources are out there to help you complete this work? Well, hopefully the dynamic that's created amongst your group will be a great resource. So I think the communication and the interaction between the different folks who are in the groups will be great. We are always available, the county's website, and I'm not sure why that popped up white, because I'm sure you can't see it, but hopefully you're all aware of the county's website and you can get to it from there. So we'll keep uploading information that will be helpful. If you think you need something, just let us know where that is and we can find it for you, and we'll try and put it upon the website so everybody can use it. The comprehensive plan, of course, is a resource, and those excerpts of the chapters that relate to your working groups we've already put on there. So hopefully you could see those. The comprehensive plan's a resource. So here at the planning office, we're there and available to you, and I know on the handout you have a little bit more information with some phone numbers on there. So please feel free to contact myself, Eric, Candice, John, whomever else might be here in the planning staff. There'll always be somebody there to help you. There are other departments and agencies that are a resource to us. Business development, Patrick Barker, the Economic Development Commission Director, he'll be available to that group. Ed Strosnider, the Public Works Director. Obviously, the landfill is a big player in this part of the county. Ren Emanuel with the Winchester Regional Airport's out there too. So there are a lot of other resources out there for you. If you contact them, great. If you need us to make some contacts, we can do that also. Other neighborhood groups, churches, professional organizations that you may know, please pull them into it too. And then we have some information there for June, myself and George's contact information should you need to get in touch with us. And again, that's really where we're at tonight. And this final slide kind of shows how it all works together. We have a facilitator group, and then we have the 4 different working groups working on this effort right now for the next couple of months, and they'll pull back into that. Provided to the facilitator group, we'll pull all those bullet points and pull all of those maps together into one final document that we'll present to the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors. Now, I think one thing that may be helpful, I have everybody's contact information who are on the working groups. I didn't put that in anything here this evening, but if anybody has a problem with that being released to the group so people can contact each other, just let me know before we leave here this evening, because otherwise I think what I can do is directly email that contact information to each of you so you have everybody's information and can communicate. You certainly have the ability to do that tonight, and I probably would expect that before you leave your working groups this evening, you guys share all of the information that you need to share so you guys can continue to work together. Before we do break into those groups, the planning office and the county office building, if you will, is always open and available to you, well, during regular business hours, which is 8 till 5, and then every other Wednesday. But in the planning office, we have several conference rooms, so they're certainly there and available to you. Please call on in, let us know so somebody can be around and available to you if you need anything. But please feel free to meet at your leisure. wherever you may want to meet, whether it's a coffee shop, downtown, Starbucks, or somebody's home, the library, wherever it may be. Please feel free, to meet at your leisure, wherever you want to. But we would also ask then that you remember to continue to keep us in the loop and communicate when you're meeting, and so on and so forth. Do you have anything else to say, George?
I'd just like to emphasize a couple points. One, Mike kind of mentioned Millbrook High School. Millbrook High School government class is doing the exact same thing that we're doing here, that you people are doing here. And it's going to be real interesting because, as Mike said, they're Googling and blogging and whatever, all that stuff is going on and so forth and so on. So, and I imagine most of this will end up to be paper and pencil out of most of us here. But anyway, we were very thrilled that they took that on, and they will complete theirs this semester. We will complete this during the same period of time. It'll be interesting at the end how close or far apart they are. So that's one thing, that kind of a little challenge to you to really get on top of things here. The other thing is, and I want to emphasize, we asked and we mentioned when you volunteered to be on a committee, this is a very short-term assignment. You may meet every week, but hit it hard. And the end of November, that's it. And we've done this several times before, and we have found this very, very profitable just to hit it. It's fresh in everybody's mind, and then you're done with it. So, again, thank you very, very much for your participation in this. I might just mention that we do have two other agencies here. Huey Wendell with the Public Sanitation Authority, and Wayne Lee with the school. Wayne's at every one of our meetings, Planning Commission meetings, so he's a fixture here. And so I know that they will be a good resource for you. Okay, Mike, I'll turn it back over to you, and you can give the direction for the tables.
Okay. And as June said, yes, it is a land use plan, text and maps, and it's thinking well into the future. So we know there are lots of issues that may be out there, that may be something that needs to be fixed today, perhaps. But let's think big, and let's think about the 2030 comprehensive plan, if you will. So think beyond perhaps where we are today, some of the shortcomings that may be out there today, and look to the future if we can. And with that, we have urban areas and residential development over here, business development by Mr. Carr, transportation over here. Mr. Bishop is the staff resource on that group, and natural resources over on that far corner, and Candice is the resource for that. So the rest of the evening is yours within your group to communicate, to start setting things up, and to really start this process going. Thank you.